All right. So, welcome to the show. We actually have our announcer in studio. We couldn't get him to actually do it online like we've been asking him to, so I had to drag him in here to record the next 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, there's a chain and a bullwhip and everything down here. You guys can't see it; it's off camera.
Just think of Royal Rumble. Where they did that.
Paul Heyman at any moment is going to waddle his ass out here with a key, and eventually, maybe by tomorrow, you'll get unlocked.
I know the story behind that. We'll talk about it during the show. All right. So, welcome to Powerbomb Weekly. Kevin, take it away.
First, I just want to say it is an honor to be joined by the Michael Burdett and the Matt Hardy lookalike. I'm so happy to be here. This is so great.
I do not look anything like Matt Hardy.
Well, on behalf of me, I can tell you it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Okay. You know what the subject today is?
I do.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Powerbomb Weekly. Tonight we break down the greatest tag teams of all time. But first, your hosts. To my right, the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend. That is Michael Burdett. To my left, Joey.
You're an ass. And welcome to the show. Great. All right, so we're going to talk about, as Kevin said, we're going to talk about the best tag teams of all time. We're also going to talk about the worst tag teams of all time.
Okay.
So,
which list are we on? The most mediocre of all time?
We are on the We Get It Done.
Okay, yeah.
Sort of.
You know what? It's coming from the worst person, but I love Kevin Nash's shoot where he talks about, he's like, I just wanted to be called a good hand. No one is ever going to call Kevin Nash a good hand, but just that phrase has stuck with me. It'd be like, that guy's a piece of shit, but he was a real good hand.
Right.
So maybe that's what we are. We are the gatekeepers. We're the middle card. We're the guys who work with the guys to make those guys look better.
So we're the Miz?
Are they on? They're on the worst, right?
All right. So, Mike, what is your favorite tag team of all time?
Oh man,
Or you think is the greatest tag team of all time?
I'm so scatterbrained from being over with the new work stuff, and I honestly had forgot even what our subject was today. But when it really comes to tag teams, man, I mean, I really think, and it's going to sound cornetish, but I really like Midnight Express.
Oh.
I really think
I was going to get comfortable.
Bobby Eaton, Stan Lane, I mean, those
Midnight
guys,
Express.
Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, those two guys together.
Well, which
I've seen
one?
them live so many times.
Which one's better?
I got to go with Midnight because Bobby Eaton is one of the best sellers I've ever seen in my life.
Midnight Express. What about you, Kevin?
British Bulldogs.
British Bulldogs.
British Bulldogs, man.
All right. So for me, I wasn't as old school as you guys. So when I think of great tag teams right now, I mean, of all time, I mean,
Can I guess?
What?
Spirit Squad. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
You're such a dick. When I think about tag teams that have been there, done that, they've gone, they've performed everywhere, and they never really lost a step. For me, honestly, it's the Dudley Boys. I mean, The Dudley Boys have won tag team championships in every company they've been in.
Yeah.
They're not good separate. They only work as a team.
Bully Ray was probably about the closest separate that they ever got that made him shine.
Right, but
and
the Deacon never shined.
Deacon never shined. And did you hear the story of why Bully Ray's WWE, or I guess F at the time, why his championship run got kiboshed?
No.
So he was in a match, big schmoz, everything was going on, and he picks up Hunter. And he says it's the weirdest thing. He'd had a nerve injury that he didn't know about, and he picked Hunter up, and he dropped Hunter. He was supposed to put him through a table, and he dropped him right on his head.
Oh.
And he's like, after that, creative said they didn't have anything for me.
All right. I'll come a little closer. Anyway, so I have 3 different lists. One from beginning of 2019, one from the end of 2019, and one from 2020. I took a bunch of them out, and this lists go all over the place. Some of them there's 2 lists of the top 20, one of them is the top 10.
I have a question.
Yeah.
For Mike.
Yes, sir.
Are you surprised? Because I really expected him to say his favorite tag team of all time was Billy and Chuck. Did you expect that?
I was thinking it was going to be.
Chuck.
Well, he said he didn't watch TNA, but I was figuring it was going to be the I Heart tag team of Eric Young and the other guy that
the Canadians.
No, not the Canadians. No, it was That was awful. Remember them? They wore the T-shirts that said "I Heart Tag Team Wrestling" and they were always hugging each other.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was Eric Young and them. Yeah.
Good.
Not Billy and Chuck?
No.
Not Billy and Chuck though, huh?
All right. So,
Surprised.
there's really, I have like a whole bunch of crap arrows. So the tag teams that are that show up on the most on the list. So I'm going to go with the one in the middle. It's the top 10 because they go all over the place. So for the Sportster in 2019, number 10, they had the Hart Foundation.
Okay, that's classic WWF TV. Yeah.
The Hart Foundation was number 6 in one list and number 3 in the other list. So it's obviously within the top 10. It's definitely a top
3
10.
seems awful high.
Number 9, the Rock and Roll Express, which was number 1 in the 2020 list, and it was number 16 in the November 2019 list.
I mean, they're still going. That's the crazy thing is that Ricky and Robert are still going. And for anybody who is going to give a shout out to Kayfabe commentaries and listen to House of Kayfabe stuff, Brian has told me that he is working on some stuff to maybe have Ricky Morton come on and do a big show with him.
Nice.
So I hope I didn't blow anything and spoil that. Please feel free to edit this out if I spoke too soon, but definitely check our friends out over there. It looks like they're going to have some cool stuff coming up.
All right, number 8, the Steiner Brothers.
Yep.
Yeah, that would probably be my second. Meeting Scotty and them, super nice, very friendly guys. Scott Steiner, you would think is an insane person, which he is, but I never met somebody more respectful of a 12-year-old than Scott Steiner, who loved the fact that I loved him.
Right.
You know?
So that's 11 and 5 in the 2 other lists.
The best thing about the Steiners too is it was pre-bulk up for Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody who missed the Steiner brothers and only got to get to know Scott after he bulked up missed out on how much talent that guy really had.
Right. And the younger brother you should ever Rick.
Rick?
I mean, Rick.
Yeah, it was Rick and Scotty. Yeah.
Yeah. Rick was very old
I think
school.
they had a third brother, but never did anything.
All right, so number 6 on this list, number 7 on this list, the New Age Outlaws, which didn't even show up in the top 20 on one list and was number 7 on the other list. So New Age Outlaws, I
like them. I think they're stuck in that time frame of when they worked.
right.
And
when they became Voodoo King Mafia, which was the same thing, but just sing.
That was pretty weird, and I definitely think I know on Cornette's thing they've talked about it where they got put together because they were the 2 guys on the roster that could never win a match, so they just stuck them together. Like Road Dogg and Billy were the bottom of the barrel, like curtain jerking, like dark match guys. They could never ever win on TV, so they ended up putting them together, and they ended up becoming the number 7 greatest tag team of all time.
All right, number 6, the Midnight Express.
Yeah.
Yep.
Number 5 in one list and number 11 in the other. Number 5, I'm surprised. This one's got to be up there. The Harlem Heat.
I mean,
back in the day.
Harlem Heat's awesome, and it's the same thing. Maybe it's just a time period.
Yeah.
Maybe because they're stuck in that WCW 90s time frame, and the fact that
They never went anywhere else.
well, they never really traveled anywhere else. They didn't really work too much, and really when Scott and Nash came in, they kind of just got smashed to the side.
And then Stevie Ray was just like, I'm taking my ball, going home. I don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about later with the worst tag teams. Then you got the Dudley Boys, number 4. Which was number 4 in one list and number 3 in the other list. Number 2.
I don't think there's a promotion that they don't own a championship in.
Right.
No.
Like, dear God.
The Hardy Boys, number 3 in one list, number 2 in one list, and number 4 in another list.
Well, they're trying real hard to destroy that legacy, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Well, if you think about them just as a tag team,
Yeah.
you don't watch anything they're doing now.
And it's another one of those I've gone back and it's like, especially the 90s Attitude Era. And I think Attitude is the best way to describe it because it was just it was almost as big as the 80s for the cartoon wrestling where everything was so character driven. It was the same thing for that portion of that late 90s 2000 because I've gone back and watched some of the Hardy Boy stuff. If they're not doing car crash spots, their matches really aren't that interesting.
Yeah.
It's a lot of drop kick, clothesline, punch, drop kick, clothesline, punch. And that's all it is. There's not a lot of chain stuff going on, except for Matt, who can do it depending on who he's working with.
Number 2, Edge and Christian.
Absolutely. I mean, I hated them. I hated them when they first dropped. Loved them when they came back, and they were so annoying with the glasses and the 5-second pose and stuff. I actively hated them. I thought they were so terrible, and that makes them good because I believed it.
Right. The wrestling didn't change, but you didn't care about the wrestling. You cared about the And then number 1 on 2 lists and number 2 on the other, the Road Warriors.
Absolutely.
Yep. Legion of Doom.
It's the Road Warrior Pop. We talked about it. It's why it's called that.
So here's some ones that aren't in the top 10, but show up on both the 20. Beer Money.
Loved Beer Money, and
They had only longevity though to be in the conversation. I don't feel like they did. I mean, they didn't have. You talk about the Road Warriors. You talk about Midnight Express. You talk about the teams that did it for a long time.
I think top 20. Yeah. They're in the top 20.
I mean, I would say so because seeing a lot of TNA stuff, as you talked about, when we got caught up earlier for the show, this is the first time me and Kevin met each other physically, at this point. Eventually, by the end of this, we will have intimately met each other.
And I now know that all my intros about how awesome he is correct.
Yes. So there's no line here about who the star is. But seeing them live so many times and watching so many stuff flounder. Like, I watched what they did to Samoa Joe, and I watched them slowly destroy Kurt Angle. Whenever they did Beer Money, the whole crowd jumped out of the seat.
Yeah.
So for them seeing them live, I could see them in the conversation.
The Foreign Legion.
How far back does that go?
The Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov.
Wow.
Lord. I mean,
for bad guy tag teams,
right?
For bad guy tag teams, they set a bar.
But they weren't all that talented, were they?
No, but like Mike just talked about, when you had Beer Money rallying the fans up, when you had Volkov and Sheik come out, they drew heat like nobody else before them.
Doing the
the Russian national anthem
on the thing, and the Russian national. And the funny thing is Volkov's not even Russian,
right?
Because Dragunov is the first Russian WWE signed wrestler.
All right, how about Doom?
We just lost
Ron Simmons and Butch Reed.
Yeah, we just lost Butch Reed, so I don't remember much of them, to be perfectly honest, but I remember the parts that I saw I did like,
So this shows up on 2 lists, but not on the 3rd, obviously. The Brainbusters.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, though, that Arn has to be with the Horsemen. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
That Arn is part of that package, Them on their own, amazing stuff. And I don't think they ever got their just desserts for being in the WWF. But I think you have to have woo, and that completes the package.
Yep. So, and then the last one that we're going to talk about before we move on to the next part of this is, 2 lists have the Fabulous Freebirds are on 2 different lists, but this one had the 2020 list has a couple of newer people at number 8 and number 9. So number 9 they have the Briscoes.
Right on. Yeah.
And number 8 they have the Young Bucks and the New Day as tied.
No.
Now, so let's talk about a couple of notes I have about the tag teams. So the Brainbusters, obviously, it was Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard. They were quintessential serious Southern style heels, but without the Four Horsemen, it was kind of like it did. This was trying to bring NWA into the WWE, and it just did not translate well for those that were young kids that didn't know any better. They were like, I remember going, who are these guys in blue tights, and why do I care?
They had a transition problem, I think, for it because WWE it's theatrical, wouldn't you say? I mean, it's gotten too theatrical in my opinion, but Tully apparently got in trouble for steroids, and that jacked up the contract, and Arn got locked in, and then when they got rid of him, they didn't have anything for Arn, so they both back and forth for 2 or 3 years, so we really lost almost 3 years in between of back and forth and them going.
So most of these tag teams we're talking about have been tag teams for a long time.
Yeah.
How long were Edge and Christian an actual tag team? They've known each other since they were 10 years old in real life. They really did know each other. So how long did they actually tag team together?
I would say the Brood lasted 2. The Concerto probably lasted 3, and then they did the 7 years.
Yeah, if that long.
It says here that While they've been friends since they were 10 years old, they were only an official tag team for 3 years.
Okay. I'd believe it.
Maybe they excluded the Brood because they were a faction at that time and not just a tag team. I want to go back just for a second to talk about Arn and Tully. Mm-hmm. It reminds me of Gallows and Anderson now, where they really stood out well as part of a faction, mm-hmm. but you get them on their own and they just don't capture the attention.
Yeah,
and I think
they're talented. The magic's just not there without that star, that centerpiece.
Somebody wrote the Wild Samoans, easily the most intimidating tag team of all time.
Yeah, probably one of the strongest teams too.
The Briscoes are six-time Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. They are the most reliable stars in the company. I think that they'll never leave Ring of Honor, but if they ever did, I think they could do well somewhere. I mean, they did New Japan, obviously, but
yeah.
Can they be considered a great tag team if they don't leave Ring of Honor?
I think so. I think so. I think 10 years from now, when we're doing this list again, they'll be.
I think there's too many people that only have wrestled one place mm-hmm. to discredit people of saying they're only there. How many WWE creations never went anywhere except there?
Mm-hmm. Right. So I wanted to read this just word for word because I know you really don't care for the Young Bucks, and
that's what I was like. No, get them out of there.
I don't really care for the Young Bucks most of the times, but this is what this author wrote. From spot monkeys to the best tag team today, the Young Bucks evolution has disrupted the industry. Even their hardest critics have come around since Mac and Nick Jackson joined the Bullet Club and incorporated the more psychology into their matches. The most impressive is the amount of merchandise they sold to Decade, rivaled only by the New Day. And then it gives off all their different tag teams. So, I am not a huge fan of the Young Bucks either. I don't like them. The only person I know that really likes them is Dad. Dad likes the Young Bucks. I don't know why. Their New Japan stuff wasn't that great. The Ring of Honor stuff, no. And maybe I can't stand the Young Bucks because I can never get what's the announcer's name over there, the chubby dude, who just would scream super kick 15,000 times.
Yeah.
I couldn't get over it, and it soured me on that.
I know we're not on that subject, but at this point, is the super kick the most overused move in wrestling history at this point?
It might be.
I don't think there's a single person on this roster that I have not seen throw a super kick, at least in the last 3 years.
And the other one that didn't show up really on the list was Demolition.
Yep, I was going to bring up Demolition.
Yeah.
Don't they have to make the top 10? I mean, they had a run.
They're 13 in one list and 6 in the other.
Yeah. I mean, they had a great run.
I have fond memories. I mean, I think the problem that I have with them is that I know Dorsey and them were cool with Hawk and Animal. I think the problem is when I look back at them, I just think they're Road Warrior lights.
Right, and that's what a lot of people say. So when we do our 20-year reunion show,
yes,
when we go, hey, 20 years ago we talked about tag teams, and who do you think now that's not even really close to this list do you think is going to be a contender for top 10 right now in some of the new talent we've seen?
Let's see, who have they slammed together recently? I mean, who's operating right now that's really like a legitimate team that's
FTR.
Yeah, I mean, FTR was probably going to be in the conversation. I think they're in the conversation now for how good they are. But everybody right now seems to just be two guys thrown together.
Yeah.
Two guys who are straight traveling together, aside from the Young Bucks and New Day. Obviously, Anderson, Gallows, the Good Brothers, those guys. But I'm having trouble. Go to the next part. Member of the class, come back to me.
Yeah, Dolph Ziggler and Rude, they've thrown together. Nakamura and Cesaro, they were thrown together. You're right. Yeah. Tag teams are just thrown together now.
I don't think there will be. I mean, I think we've looked at the death of traditional tag team wrestling in the last 20 years.
Jurassic Express.
They don't believe in keeping.
They're a trio.
Yeah, they don't believe in keeping people together long enough. Now, tag team wrestling is seen as a way to either nurse along a career that's on its way out, or to introduce somebody on their way
apart
in.
Immediately. I think at this point, I mean, it's
it's
probably the women. Would you say the women have a better shot at being one of the longer-lasting tag teams for who we've seen put together at this point? Because,
probably. Well, it's been documented. Vince McMahon hated tag teams.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Because why pay 4 people to do the job of 2 people?
Right. Exactly. Vince McMahon is always in. There have been good tag team matches, and Vince McMahon just
Absolutely, but I mean,
that's why he rips them apart as soon as he can.
have we seen? I mean, you talked about the death of tag team wrestling, and obviously the people that they're kind of sticking together, and obviously Cornette and Pritchard and a couple other podcasts have talked about this. They just put people together.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take somebody who's a single, like, let's look at two people on the roster who just, when we get to Raw, we'll talk about it. Riddle and Keith Lee.
Yeah.
Do you honestly think that Riddle and Keith Lee could be an effective tag team, other than the fact that one's really athletic and one's really big?
No.
You have to spend time together with the guy to know where those double two moves are coming at and what the guy's selling is and who's going to be the feeder and who's going to be the guy to come in and clean house. Obviously, you can maybe put that together, but you have to put in the time.
Tyler Breeze and Fandango, they became an amazing tag team.
Breezango, that's probably the only two that I could think of.
Cesaro and Sheamus were
the bar were
they
good, weren't they?
For two singles that they kind of mashed together. They had a really good run. They worked really well off of each other. And if they had left them together for a while, I think that they could have been in the discussion.
It probably protected Sheamus, because I think we were talking about this time that he had the neck problem.
Yeah.
That probably kept Sheamus to where he's having what he's able to do now in the ring safer, because he had Cesaro to fall back on. Mm-hmm. And we saw Cesaro get his mouth busted open, and that mouthpiece is classic now for him.
Cesaro, what they should do. All right, so now let's flip the tables completely. I did steal this from Jim Cornette. I was listening to him earlier when I was listening to him in the shower, actually. And he brought up, Brian Last brought up the January 2021 411 Mania's worst tag teams of all time.
How many of these do you think are some of Joey's favorites?
Let's see. How often?
None of them. None of them. Most of them I've never heard of, to be straight honest. Okay. So I'm going to look to you guys. So I'm going to go with. So there was another one from 2019 that had the top 15. The other one has the top 7. So I'm just going to go a couple of ones that don't show up on both lists. The Dancing Fools, Disco Inferno and Alex Wright. They were
horrid.
Yeah,
absolutely horrid.
Well Done. Steve Dahl and Rex King.
Never seen
no
it.
idea.
Yeah.
Deuce and Domino.
Awful.
They were so bad.
They were so terrible.
They reminded me of two Andrew Dice Clay ripoffs.
Right.
Yeah.
They had Cherry with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were awful. I think the movie Deuces Wild, if
Right.
you remember that, had come out around that time, and I think that's why they got jobs. They were horrid.
The Basham Brothers.
The Bashams weren't that bad.
So I disagree with this one a little bit, but the Mexicools. They had a horrible game. So it was Psychosis, Super Crazy, and Guerrera.
Oh, Lord.
In WCW times.
Yeah.
They worked. They're basically the prequel to the Lucha Brothers, the Lucha Party right now.
Was this around the Latino World Order?
Right.
Starting to mix in.
They used to bring the lawn care stuff to the ring with them.
Oh my God! I forgot how fucking racist that was. Oh my God! Oh, was that part of the pinata on a pole match stuff?
Probably.
Oh Lord! Thanks, Russo. Thanks for that.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Man.
Number 10, the West Hollywood Blondes.
No.
Lanny Lane and Lodi.
Yeah. Well, I was never a fan of Lodi to begin with, but
He was out there.
Yeah.
I mean, this was pre Billy and Chuck. This was pre. What we have in AEW right now. Number 9, Harlem Heat 2000.
Yeah.
Booker T and Ahmad Johnson.
No.
Yeah.
Because Stevie Ray wouldn't come back.
And that was when Ahmed was really out of shape.
Right.
Yeah. That was bad.
All right. So now these are going to show up on both lists. Number 7 and number 8, respectively. The Dicks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The Dicks are bad. Now the little graphic image I saw on his YouTube page makes sense. Yeah.
Number 6 and number 3, respectively. The Tenko Team 2000.
Oh.
Chad Fortune and Eric Watts.
Oh God! I was like, yeah, Techno Team 2000. Yeah, that had Eric Watts in it. Man, you want to talk about somebody who they killed, Eric Watts. Good Lord, because that's Bill's kid.
Mm-hmm.
And man, I remember when he came in and he was.
Yeah, Bill didn't take care of him.
It was like everybody knew that he was Watts' kid, and they They tried not to put it, and everybody in the crowd just destroyed that guy.
Number 5. Number 5 and number 4, respectively. The Spirit Squad. Only one person survived.
Can you call them a tag team, though? Because they really were a faction.
And that's exactly what Cornette said, too. Cornette's like, it's really unfair to call them a tag team.
Is it unfair for those guys that the gimmick was bad? Because, I mean, look at the athleticism of, 3 out of the 5, right?
Right. And one of them was just completely out of shape and broken.
Yeah. Kenny Dykstra, they killed him.
Right.
And that dude was absolutely, I think he was just as good, if not better, than Ziggler at this point. So if they could have not ran them out of the business, that could have been something. So I don't think they would be the worst, because if you look at it, we remember them, and they got over. I cannot tell you a single match of Techno Team 2000.
Right. So
and in Spirit Squad's defense, like you mentioned, we remember them.
Yeah.
I mean, they healed it up really well.
Right.
I mean,
I would put, what was it, the Greenwich Street Posse, where Shane got all his buddies jobs. I would say that is worse with, what was his name, Pete Gas and Joey Farts or whatever his name was. Yeah, those guys, no.
all right.
I forgot
So
about the Mean Street Posse.
so number 4 and number 2, respectively, on the lists, the Harris Brothers.
Yeah.
I mean, they had so many different names and so many different companies. They were
I'm
part
not
of
a fan of them. I know they're...
Aces and Eights. You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of the Harris Brothers, honestly.
All right. So we're going to jump to number 1, and then we'll go with the back and forth. This is number 1 on... Well, okay, so fine. Number 3, the new Midnight Express.
Oh, yeah, where they slammed Billy and... what's his name? The guy who won the Brawl for All.
Right.
They put them together.
Bart Gunn.
Yeah, it was Bart Gunn, because I remember Cornette quit
Yeah.
doing that because he's like, they're fighting in the first round. How are they a tag team if they just got in a fight?
Right.
Where one of them knocked the other one out.
Number 2, the Ding Dongs.
The Ding Dong.
So, for those of you who don't know, I know some people watch the show because they're our friends. The Ding Dongs
9 o'clock.
are absolutely awful. This was
funny.
what was this guy? It's the guy Cornette rips all the time, and his name, I'm blanking. It wasn't George Scott. It was the other guy, right? Who was in charge of WCW at the time. And they had bells.
Yep.
And they wanted the crowd to get behind him of ding dong, and this was his brilliant idea. And then this was also the same guy who came up with the Hunchback.
Right.
He was the unbeatable guy because you couldn't pin him. And I love the story that Cornette tells of Ole Anderson being like, all right, so put me in the match with the Hunchback. I put him in a submission mold. He just tapped out. I just beat your unbeatable champion. Some people just should not be involved in the wrestling business.
I like
Bill
the
Watts?
Ding
No,
Dongs.
not Bill Watts. It was, I know who you're talking about, too. All right. So, number 1 on both lists is the same team.
Jim Herd.
It
was Jim Herd who was in charge, and he came from Pizza Hut. He was the owner of the Pizza Hut, or one of the major guys for Pizza Hut, and WCW hired him to be in charge of their wrestling company.
All right. So, these are 3 teams that didn't show up on the 411 list, but they showed up in the 2019 list. The Godwins.
Oh, the Godwins were pretty bad.
Legion of Doom 2.0.
That was with Draws, wasn't it? Was that Draws? Oh, no, that's when Sonny came in at WrestleMania.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
They
They redid the outfits with the flames and stuff coming up. Sonny looked so hot. Go back and watch that WrestleMania.
I was never a fan of Legion of Doom the first time, let alone the second time.
And then, number 5 in the 2019 list, David Flair and Crowbar.
All right, I can truthfully say I remember that.
I do too.
I do remember that. But you know what that gave us? Stacy Keibler.
It's true.
Man,
All right.
Stacy Keibler coming out. Damn, she got legs.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just coincidental, but number 7, you had the Dicks.
Yeah.
Number 2, you had the Ding Dongs. The number 1 worst tag team in both lists is the Johnson. The Johnsons.
Yep, with Big Dick Johnson.
Oh, God.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to throw one out there. The Skyscrapers. With Sid and Spivey.
Right.
That was one of the worst teams I've ever seen together. And because they gave us 2 of the biggest characters, Have you ever gone back and watched any of the Blade Runners with Warrior and Sting?
No.
Oh man, they tried so hard to make those guys, and it was awful. And those were pretty terrible.
There's another one too that should have made the list, which was natural disasters, a typhoon, and
earthquake.
Earthquake. Oh my God!
Well, those were
awful.
They were awful, but those were Hogan's buddies, and then that because Typhoon wasn't he Tugboat?
Yeah.
His evil friend Tugboat turned on him, and that was
so bad.
Did you? What were your thoughts on the Bushwhackers? Were they good or bad or just like entertainment? That's the one I can think of.
I mean, entertainment would be what I could think of because I'm pulling out of the well right here, but because there's another team as we kind of go through this, I prepared nothing, as I said, and as we go through, I start to remember shit, so I apologize, but the Nasty Boys, where are they at on there? I mean, I can honestly say when I watched that man shove another man's face into his armpit, and then we got the stink face later, I hated him. I hated it because I was like, that's so... Even as a kid, like a 4-year-old watching it, I was like, ew.
So what about their pretend the pretend Nasty Boys, the other rap group?
Are you talking about Public Enemy?
Yeah, Public Enemy.
When they brought Public Enemy in, I was behind Public Enemy, but apparently, from what I understand, is they were just awful to work for. They were terrible. But a lot of those guys, I mean, tag team wrestling has always got a place on the show.
Oh yeah,
it should be featured more now today, and not just stick champion A with champion B and hope that makes a good match, because they're your individual champion for a reason. They shine individually. When you take two people who might not have a spot, like Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, those guys were nothing. They were never going to go anywhere. But you put them together, and everybody remembers, oh, you didn't know?
Right.
You remember that.
Yeah, tag team wrestling is fun. It's definitely needed, and I'm glad that we're getting more of it. So that's going to conclude our discussion on greatest and worst tag teams of all time. Any last minute before we move on to the next?
No, I think a great topic for a future show is tag teams where one partner always carries the other one, because that would totally be Michael carrying you all the time, every week.
You know what we're going to have? This wall right here is going to get knocked down because I'm going to sidekick your head off like Marty Jannetty with Shawn Michaels. Just boom! And I'm going to go solo and main event WrestleMania.
Nice.
And you know who I'm going to wrestle? I already know, because I'm not going to go on every show and be like, man, who do I wrestle this week? I don't know. I'm going to know. And somebody's music hits and comes out, No.
All right. So, as always, you've got a lot of people are laughing at that. Great. Perfect. I'm laughing at myself. Hey, as always, please in the comments, let us know who's watching, like, share, whatever, so that we know. Also, wow, I'm usually the one that does the transitions, and you're screwing me all up.
What transitions you know?
So that concludes Tag Team Wrestling. Now we're going to move on to our AEW and Impact review.